I married her for love and discovered the truth after 7 years. I used to think silence in a house was a sign of peace. I lived in that silence for 7 years, wrapping myself in it like a warm blanket, believing it meant Clara and I were so synchronized we didn't need words. Now the silence feels different. It feels like a thick, suffocating fog, and every time I breathe, I feel the weight of 1,000 lies settling in my lungs. I married Clara because she was the only thing in my world that felt certain. We met in a rainy October, and by the following June, I was sliding a diamond onto her finger. She was quiet, graceful, and possessed a kind of melancholy beauty that made me want to be her protector. I loved her with a ferocity that bordered on worship. For 7 years, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. The red flags weren't red at the time. They were pale pink, easily ignored or painted over with the brush of personality. There was the way she never talked about her life before the age of 24, dismissing her past as boring or painful. There was the way she'd sometimes stare out the window for hours, her eyes tracking something I couldn't see. And there was the phone, always face down, always silent, a black mirror reflecting nothing. I told myself she was just private. I told myself that her occasional emotional distance was just the way she processed the world. We had a life. We had a mortgage, a dog named Silas, and a ritual of Sunday morning coffee in bed. I thought I knew the contours of her soul. The truth didn't come in a dramatic confrontation or a tearful late-night confession. It arrived on a Tuesday afternoon while she was at the gym, and I was looking for our marriage certificate to settle an insurance claim. I found the small, leather-bound box tucked behind a loose board in the back of her closet. It wasn't locked. Inside, there were no love letters from another man, no secret bank accounts, and no burner phones. There was only a stack of laminated newspaper clippings and a single grainy photograph. The clippings were from a small town 3 states away, dated 10 years ago. They told the story of a tragic house fire. A young woman had perished, along with her 2-year-old daughter. The woman's name was Clara Vance, my wife's name. My heart did a slow, sickening roll in my chest. I looked at the photograph. It was a picture of the woman from the article. She looked exactly like my Clara, but younger, holding a toddler with the same distinctive birthmark on her wrist that my Clara has on hers. Then I saw the death certificate. Not for the woman in the fire, but for a man named Julian Vance. He had died in prison a week before Clara and I met. I sat on the floor of the closet, surrounded by the smell of her expensive perfume and the ghost of a life I didn't recognize. I realized then that I hadn't married Clara. I had married a woman who had used a tragedy to erase herself. I spent the next 4 hours spiraling through a digital rabbit hole I never wanted to enter. Using the names from the clippings, I found the truth. My wife wasn't the victim of that fire. She was the one who was suspected of starting it. The Clara who died was her sister-in-law. The child was her own. She hadn't been private. She had been hiding in plain sight, using the identity of a dead woman to escape a life of wreckage and a potential prison sentence that never materialized because the evidence had burned to ash. I heard the front door open, the familiar jingle of her keys, the soft, "Hey, babe," she always called out. I didn't move. I stayed in the dark of the closet, clutching the photo of the child she had never once mentioned in 7 years. The child she had left behind, or worse. She walked into the bedroom. I could hear her humming a song I'd heard her sing 1,000 times. It was a lullaby. "Leo," she called again, her voice closer now. I stepped out of the closet, the box in my hands. The humming stopped instantly. The air in the room seemed to freeze, turning into a solid block of ice between us. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't even look surprised. She just stood there, her gym bag slipping from her shoulder, her face transitioning from the mask of my loving wife into something cold, ancient and entirely unrecognizable. "I wondered if you'd ever look in there," she said. Her voice was flat, devoid of the warmth I had built my life upon for nearly a decade. "Who are you?" I whispered. My voice broke, a jagged sound in the silent room. She took a step toward me, and for the first time in 7 years, I felt a surge of genuine, cold-blooded fear. She didn't look like a murderer. She looked like the woman I loved, and that was the most terrifying part. "I'm the woman who loved you for 7 years," she said, her eyes fixed on mine. "Does it matter what happened before that? We were happy, Leo. You were happy. You lied about everything," I said, the words feeling like glass in my throat. "The fire, the child, your name. I don't even know who I'm looking at." She walked closer, stopping just inches away. She reached out to touch my face, her hand steady, her skin warm. I should have flinched, but I was paralyzed by the sheer impossibility of the moment. "The woman you married was real," she whispered. "I created her for you. I gave you the best version of a person that could exist. Isn't that a kind of love?" She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't offer an explanation. She just stood there in the wreckage of our life, waiting to see if the man who loved her was stronger than the man who knew the truth. I looked at her, at the curve of her jaw, the eyes I had kissed every morning, the hands that had cooked my meals and held me when I was grieving my father. I tried to find the monster in her features, but I only found my wife. I haven't called the police. I haven't left. We're sitting in the kitchen now. The clock is ticking on the wall. She's making tea, just like she does every night. The silence is back, but it's no longer peaceful. It's a countdown. I look at her and I wonder, if a life is built on a lie but the love felt real, what is left when the light hits it? Am I her husband, or am I just the final piece of her disappearance? The tea kettle whistles. She turns, smiles at me, a perfect, practiced, beautiful smile, and sets a cup in front of me. "Drink," she says softly. "You look like you've seen a ghost."